For starters, could you just tell me a bit about your band? Like, what's the need to know about the DHARMA Chain?
I don't want to answer this because I am not the original DHARMA member.
So we started in a town called Byron Bay in Australia, like a little surf town, where me and Ben met while we were studying audio engineering, and we kind of gradually grew. Him and Emily were jamming already, and then we started jamming with Aiden, and then we all kind of grew from there, and everyone met in that town.
I knew Em from our bands used to play, our previous bands used to play together. I knew Em, our previous bands used to play together, so it was like this three-way thing where like me and Em actually matched on Tinder. No bullshit, this is how it happened.
Is that really how?
And Em was like, hey, I want to do a music project. I was like, man, me too.
That's not what Tinder's for.
I feel like Emily's like the glue that brought us all together because she invited me to the band.
And then she found Aiden.
And she knew Aiden already as well.
No, because at the same time, I had Jara in another world, in my study world. So those worlds combined, and then...
So Em and I didn't match on Tinder.
Didn't you?
No.
There's still time.
I actually was playing at home in my living room on my own to like a loop pedal with my drum kit, and had expressed to Emily that I was probably ready to play in a band. And then like a week later she was like, oh, there's this guy Ben, and he's been like kind of hanging out with Jara and writing, and they're going to do something, like you should go and play with them. And I just rocked up to their house in the middle of Byron, like really intimidated, like I'd never met these guys before.
It was literally like, I was like, oh yeah, but we don't have a drummer, because drummers were like
few and far between.
Yeah, like diamonds at that point in Byron. And Em was like, I'll get a drummer next week. And I was like, this chick's off her head. And then literally next week, you came strolling in with your van, putt down the fucking down
It was the
driveway.
first time I'd taken my drum kit out of my house. It was like so scary. I don't know, like, it was.
We're really reminiscing. This is not need to know. The point is, we started in a little surf town called Byron in Australia, and then we played around that area for like a year. And then we were like, at the end of Corona, because we were locked in Australia that whole time, and then at the end of that, we all wanted to go traveling, and then we were like, why don't we just all move together to one place overseas?
Yeah.
And so we were like Berlin, and then we gradually kind of...
Yeah.
Now we're here.
And now we're all here. All six of us made it. And that was a year ago we moved here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you all met somehow in Byron Bay, but how did you kind of found your sound? I mean, progressive rock mixed with shoegaze. It's not that common mixture. Like how?
I think we just play like what we like listening to, really. Like at the start, we were just writing very much influenced by the music we were listening to, and just trying to be like, because we were kind of just starting to write songs, all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd written songs beforehand in a different style a lot. I hadn't really written. Ben had written a bit, but yeah, I think in this genre, this was the first time any of us had tried writing in this style, and we just kind of copied our influences for a while, and then kind of found our own lane after a while.
Yeah, I think we all definitely listened to very eclectic taste of musics between us as well. Like Bronte, before playing in the band, was singing in like a neo soul band. Like, I was really influenced. I was really influenced by like jazz and hip hop drumming, and like I didn't even have a crash cymbal before this band. Like, you know, like we kind of just directed into this strange.
What's a drummer without a crash?
Strange
Emily's doom metal, like just
Emily was
loves
in
the
a
heaviest
surf
of
rock
shit.
band.
Emily was doing surf rock,
And we
like.
just kind of like
Yeah.
I think as
combined
well,
it up.
creating a democracy, we all try and have like something that we enjoy in each of the songs, but then at the same time make it cohesive, make it collective.
Yeah.
Benny, I have a lighter.
One?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like the mixture of something and something doesn't really give it justice. How would you describe your music in your own words?
Oh, it's hard to
Our
describe.
own music taste or collectively?
our music.
At the DHARMA Chain. Yeah.
No, you go. I was gonna say
3, 2, 1. Punk.
I love that.
No, definitely not. Go on.
I think we're still trying to define that at the moment. I think like moving here has helped us a lot. I think at the start we all just tried to put all our styles together and see like what came of it, which definitely was something. But I think now we've gotten to a point where it's like we're starting to see our own sound, and I think that takes years for a band to develop.
Yeah, and like, I just started copying the people that I like to listen to, copying, literally. And then if you have a look at our songs that are actually released, is the acoustic thing still up there?
Yeah.
we've got like an acoustic album, like, and we never play acoustic songs live. Yeah, we don't play any of those
I think it's
songs.
hard for us to define what it is because
so
from
we-
the start we were like, let's try and make it hard to define what it is. You know, that was like the point initially. Was like this: we're gonna do every genre that we like. We're not gonna like box this project into one thing because we just want to write quickly. Because in the first year we put out like 20 songs between 2 EPs and an album, and we just like wrote them, recorded them, released them. And now we've changed a bit, but that was the initial kind of idea for it.
Yeah, well, God, it's been like almost 2 decades since my East Coast run in Australia. So I did visit Byron Bay also, of course.
Oh, cool.
But
Very different now.
like, how and why does a 6-piece band move to another continent? Like, why
Great
from
question.
Byron Bay to Berlin?
I would say for me, it was never a decision that I premeditated. I honestly was just like the young pup of the group that was excited to follow. I would say Emily has been to Berlin before, so she was kind of had an idea of a city that she wanted to revisit and could create another music endeavor there.
I think it was like I remember coming it was the first day out of lockdown in Byron, and it just like, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be overseas. My family live in Europe and whatnot. And that day we all got to go to the pub finally and see each other, and went to the pub, said to these 2 boys, guys, I'm sorry, but I think I need to move to Berlin. Like, even just for like 6 months, a year, I just need to be in Europe. And then within 2 minutes, these 2 were like,
No,
like,
initially
okay,
you
we'll
wanted
come.
Initially, you wanted to go to Melbourne, and everyone put it forward just to be in another city. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave. And I was like, I just came from
Yeah.
Melbourne. I've been there for 10 years. I'm not going back to Melbourne. You can move anywhere else in the world. And I was like, what about Berlin? And I was like,
Yeah, we were kind of on the fence with Melbourne or Berlin, and then we just kind of were like, we could always move to Melbourne, like we're Australian. Why don't we just go to Berlin and see, and then we can move to Melbourne
And
afterwards?
I think you were all on board, and Aiden and I weren't sure. And every time it got brought up, like, we would just like leave the room. And then we played a big festival in the sunny coast, and we had so much fun together, and it was a really special moment for us all. And at that point, I was also had a little bit to drink, and I was just like feeling so lovey with everyone.
a little bit to drink.
I was like, I'm coming to Berlin, like, we have to go. And I was just like, we're just going to see them over there and be like, why didn't we go? Like, we have to try it out.
Yeah, I think to add to that, we were enjoying it so much, and for some of us in this band, it's like the first band we've ever played in, and we were like,
We weren't friends before the band. Like, none of us
Yeah,
were
yeah,
close
yeah.
friends.
Yeah, we became friends through the band, like all of us.
And the
That
idea
was
of
the
like
strange
missing
thing.
out on that fun, and like all of us in Australia, like we're in a position to move. Like, we're all like minus Bronte, like around 30, and we don't have mortgages, we don't have kids, and we're like, we should just do this now. Like, yeah, maybe it'll go tits up, and maybe it might just be a nice story when we're older, but it also could just be this great experience that keeps unfolding, and so yeah, I guess that's where we're at.
But I guess like the more simple answer is just like touring's way easier in Europe. Like being based here just makes more sense. So like that's the nice, sweet answer. And also there's just like a practical element of like in Australia, you have to fly between cities to tour. Here you can just get in a van and drive a couple of hours and play another show. So
And you just reach so many more people. There's a lot more opportunity. I mean, Australia has an amazing music scene, and we had a lot of opportunities there too, but we were able to.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, we haven't toured yet.
All of you have quite a unique point of view. So when you compare Byron Bay, and of course there was this shit called Corona in the middle, but when you compare Byron Bay, for example, but to Berlin, like, how does these 2 very different places differ for a band?
It's very different. Byron is I don't know, you might be familiar. It's a very beautiful place, one of the most beautiful places on earth, but it's
It's a small town.
Very small town,
Yeah.
very pseudo hippie, very like.
Once you reach your audience, you've kind of reached your audience. Whereas here, there's so many people traveling, so you're
there's a
kind of
glass ceiling.
always
Yeah,
creating.
and they call it the
new-
Byron bubble for something. Like, it's a very like sheltered place, so it's kind of nice to be outside of that.
Isn't Byron Bay always filled with backpacker.
Yeah, man. I think it is.
Not in COVID.
Our music's like urban music.
I think it's darker
It's
than most.
urban music, so it's like it just kind of made sense that if we were going to move somewhere, I think naturally we're inclined to just move to a place that influences us. Yeah, like even like the music that we like came from urban places, I guess. So
Yeah,
you know, I
comparing
never
the
actually-
two musically, I would agree. It's
Yeah.
just like the music is just darker in Berlin and like more positive in Bayern because you go for
More
a surf
experimental.
and like, you know,
Yeah.
it's more experimental too. But I feel
Yeah.
like people in Berlin are like suffering through the winter, and there's just like a bit of a grip. But in Bayern, the temperature's like always 30. You can always swim. It's so easy. Like, you know,
The music, even
the
coming
problems of the world are miles away, and
Even-
here they're right up against you.
coming from Melbourne, which is a bit grittier and much like it's got a great music scene. It's a bit more alternative, and then moving to Byron, even my music taste changed a little bit just because I was surrounded by it. And the music definitely does follow the lifestyle because everyone's laid back and happy all the time and feeling good. And it's
Everything's
like
in major.
it's flowy and it's just like surf rock, you know.
I also
It's-
think just creativity in general in a city as well. Like it happens in Australia, obviously, and in Byron, there's lots of people creating, but it just happens in a very different way. Because, like you were saying, there isn't this winter, there isn't this like hibernation and this like kind of you know, melting pot of creativity happening within people and then getting to express it in this like, you know, different way in a city where it's like sunny and all of a sudden everything opens up here. Like I think the same for the music as well.
You released the song His Head already when you were here, I believe, last year. So now there's some new music out, but at least His Head has a really interesting story of being recorded in an abandoned church. So
Well, they both were recorded in that same place, actually. Yeah. So we recorded them both there, and then
We recorded the whole album there that we're bringing out soon, or toward the end of the year.
And if you mean like the time, I think it was we were trying to shoot a music video for a while, and we did a whole one, and then like scrapped it and started again, and there was just like a whole lot of setbacks in terms of like the time between the two of them. But like sound wise, I think they're really different. But that was kind of like I was saying before about having like a really broad
Well, would you
tonal
say as well,
palette.
they were actually never written to be compatible. Jara wrote His Head, and then Amanda brought towards Her Head, and I wrote the lyrics, and it was initially going to be called something completely different. And then I think you guys kind of festered on this idea of what if we kind of connected them and created a story. Do you want to explain it?
Yeah. I just felt like it was like fitting on some kind of like yin and yang level. His head, more like harsh, dark, tonal, more aggressive maybe, and then her head's more like vulnerable. They're both like dark, but kind of the two different sides, maybe like masculine and feminine, but not necessarily, just like a duality of two different sides of that kind of music that can be really aggressive and like loud, or really like soft and gentle, but still both dark. You know, still both dealing with like the extremes of human emotion.
yeah, as I understand, Angry Young Folk came out also last year. So if I understood correctly, the new album is already recorded. Was this all done already in Australia? And could you talk a bit about the writing and recording of the upcoming album?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually a very different process with this album with all of our other songs. Like, as the band had initially started out, we all like worked on songs together in our practice space, but mainly Ben and Jara were writing a lot of demos. They'd like been working on a lot of sort of material together before we'd all formed. So we were sort of feeling them out, and then with this new album in the church, we all sort of wanted to get involved a lot more hands-on and be a lot more like involved in the writing process. And we went to the church with a lot of half ideas. Like we rented out this space and took recording equipment there, spent 4 nights there, but it was a bit chaotic, to be honest. Some of the songs were just riffs, and
It
we
was
just
so chaotic.
like, we realized we might have bitten off more than we could chew
just
to
didn't
do
have
it in
enough
4
time.
days. Yeah, we
That
had
was
4
the thing.
nights. So.
Yeah. And we brought, like you said, we brought all the gear in ourselves. Like it was just an empty room, and then we like set everything up and.
But I think
and
we really
engineered it
wanted
all.
to have that experience of just being like really engaged in the writing process for a straight period of time, like locked in a church together. You know what I mean? We hadn't really had that together yet, and it was locked
And
in a
also
church.
just doing everything DIY, like Benny did all the sound
Yeah.
and
And Jared as well, yeah.
And Jared also, but yeah.
Yeah,
It was a really fun experience.
I mean, steering from every question.
But yeah.
Yeah, so when is this album coming out? In which stage is the mastering?
question.
That's a great question.
You tell us. I think it's been
Early next
Our
year.
boss is upstairs.
Early next year.
Yeah, it's been kind of a bit of a process because, we're still not sure if we're gonna put it out on vinyl, and we had never recorded this album with the intention of doing that, and then now that might be an option to do, and it's like we kind of are questioning whether we need to go back and maybe reassess some things, because to put it out in a physical release is like we really want it to be something we're super proud of. And yeah, ready to release to the rest of the world, I guess.
And I think it's strange when so much time's already passed since we recorded it. Like, and having moved here, I think, like we were saying, our tastes have changed a lot, and like the music scene that we're in is so different to what it was in Australia. So we're all a little bit like listening to it, like, oh, now we could do this. Like hearing all these other things that we could do.
I think also we've progressed as musicians as well. Like, so that happens, yeah.
I think honestly though, we're probably all quite perfectionists, and we've written it so long ago. We've listened to it so many times. We've played it, and we're all sick of the songs. So now we're like, we just want to write new songs.
The
maybe
perpetual
we'll just
cycle.
like secretly leak the album, and then we'll be like, oh, Dharma's leaked album. Oh, no.
But yeah, the album will be coming out very shortly, and it has to, because
Either very soon or never.
It's getting to that period of time now where it's just like so much time has passed. Like I don't even hear myself.
Yeah.
I don't even hear almost. It's like we need to put that thing out
100%.
and move forward.
Absolutely.
Because now it's like it's almost going to be a year and a bit for some of those song ideas to come out. It's a long fucking time.
It happens though, it's
Pretty common,
Yeah.
like in the music industry.
Yeah.
It has.
Not for us, but
It has also been a lot of delayed because we all picked up and moved to.
We all had to get fucking Ameldong.
Another continent. Ameldong's a thing. And in that time, we were signed by a label here, and we've just been kind of working on a few things, and there was some delays through that. So it's just, it's just taken some time.
Yeah, like you said, many things have changed since you relocated here in Berlin. So, it truly is a city where your dreams come true, but also a city where your dreams end.
Yeah, that's so true, 100%.
So, have you already worked on new music, and what kind of direction is it going?
Me?
yeah, well, you've been writing a lot.
Yeah, go ahead. No,
Em has been writing some songs at home. I think we all have been like, also we've all gone through that winter as well, and we've all been like inspired by this new world we're living in a very different way than we have been before. So like we don't jam that much in the studio really. Like we've never just like, we do have jams, and we like we've been doing a bit of that, and like we've got a lot of half ideas, but it's like it's
I think that's something we've decided recently. We're like, okay, like let's get back, let's start writing again. Like let's it's been a slog, but like keep going. Like the focus is always should be the writing, and should be the creating and the music, and just always evolving.
We were just very fortunate in where we were living in Byron to be playing shows pretty frequently, like twice a week, at least once a week every week, and that it's a bit different in this city. Like we don't want to oversaturate ourselves here, and we are being mindful of that. We're still like figuring out like what venues to play at, and like we're still trying to make connections and stuff. So I guess we have been focusing on playing a lot the same way we were in Byron, but it's like a bit of a different trajectory with getting shows here. Everything is like organized a lot more far in advance. There's a lot more big bands touring through here constantly, and even just medium-sized bands. And so maybe we've like kind of let the writing slip aside to focus on getting shows, and now we're like, let's just write again. Like we should just do that more importantly, almost. Yeah,
a lot has changed. What are like the future plans at the moment, or future dreams for?
The first
DHARMA
plan
CHAIN
is to not spend another winter here. I think we've all collectively. Minus Benny, sorry. The other five.
I think we have like Aiden said or someone said, we have a lot of half ideas and everyone's been writing in their own capacity. So I think we've just got a new studio and we're going to start allocating some time for everyone to get together and get some new material out. We've got an Australian tour coming up at the end of the year to skip the winter, but also just to go home and play some shows there. And I think we've got a few things lined up around Germany.
Yeah, so basically, like, we're planning to go back to Australia for the Australian summer, do a bunch of shows there, then come back early next year, and then release the album and do an album tour in Europe. That's like the touring plan. And then writing-wise, I think we're going to start working on the next album, like, now, and then have that recorded and ready, ideally, next year as well.